back with another baking video. Okay, so today I'm going to try to make an almond cake. My daughter loves almond cake. So, and this is going to be actually a vegan almond cake, but don't let that scare you because they're really tasty. I made chocolate and banana so far, and now I'm going to try to make an almond cake. And usually the cake turns out very moist and delicious. So give it a try. I know a couple of my viewers have tried the chocolate. I made the banana. My grandkids loved it. So it's kid tested. And it's not gross or yucky. So anyway, in here, this is my measuring cup. And I'll put the recipe in the description box below. I have 3/4 of a cup of almond flour. In here I have 1 cup of sugar. I should probably tilt the camera down a little bit. Hang on so you can see. Okay, that's better. 1 cup of sugar. In here I'm going to sift these together. I have 3/4 of a cup of almond flour, 1 teaspoon baking soda, 1 teaspoon lemon zest, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So the almond flour is usually a bit lumpy, so that's why I'm going to sift these all together, and I'm going to sift these into the sugar. So I've had this sifter for years and years and years, and I rediscovered it, which is always fun to do, but it goes really quick. And the almond flour, like I said, does have a lot of lumps in it, which I don't want in my cake. So, see all those lumps? But I do want to have all that delicious almond flour in there, so I'm going to squish those up a little bit. Otherwise, they just kind of bounce around in there. I like the sifter because it has a little bottom to it, but like I said, I've had it forever. I don't know where I got it. I have no idea. So, but it works great. But I don't always sift flour, but this time I am. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good with all those lumps in it. All right. So that's done. And later on today, I'm going to make the banana cake again because it was so good. So I'm just going to stir this up since the sugar was all on the bottom. I'm going to give it a good mix. And then I'm going to add my wet ingredients, which I'm all going to put all in 1 measuring cup. You don't need a mixer for this cake. It makes one, I believe it's 9-inch round. I'm going to try to make the banana cake into a loaf and see how that turns out. But it really was delicious. And you don't need to drag out your mixer. It doesn't have any eggs. It doesn't have any milk. So I'm going to mix up the wet ingredients, and I'll be right back once I get them mixed up, and I'll tell you what they are. Okay, I'm back. All right, so in this measuring cup, I have my wet ingredients, and I have 1 cup of water. I used filtered water. 6 tablespoons of neutral tasting oil. I used safflower oil. I have 1 teaspoon of vanilla and 1 teaspoon of almond extract and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. So I'm going to take my whisk and I'm going to whisk all this together before I add it to my dry ingredients. So I want this all nicely incorporated. That's one thing I do a lot with my cooking. I make sure everything is well blended, including my spices when I cook, because I don't want any hot spots where some things are you know, some areas get more flavor than others, so I always mix my spices either with a whisk or, you know, before I add them to my recipe. Okay, so that looks good. It's all incorporated. I made a little well in my almond flour, or in my flour dry ingredient recipe, and I'm going to add this before it separates. So now I'm just going to take my whisk and I'm going to whisk this up. And I don't want to over whisk it. Now, usually this doesn't make a real thick batter. But I'll be right back. I'm going to get a spoon. Okay, it was kind of clumping up in the little whisk here, so just taking a spoon and breaking up any clumps. Now this is a pretty thin batter. So I want to get this well mixed. So I'm going to whisk it a little bit longer just to get the lumps out, because like I said, the almond flour is a bit lumpy. But since this is an almond cake, and it's also what I use in my banana cake, I want it nicely incorporated. But it's not necessary to get your mixer out, but you can if you want to. Just don't over mix it. Alright, so that looks good. The batter's thin, but that's alright. That's the way it's supposed to be. So, that's all mixed up. I'm going to grease my little silicone mold, my baking pan, and I'll be right back. Alright, here I have some Baker's Joy. I always use this when I bake. If I can get the lid off. Wow, that's really on there. So Baker's Joy, and I have this little silicone pan here, but you know, use whatever you have. I just like these because nothing really sticks to them. So there we have that. And then I'm just going to take this little silicone brush and incorporate it a little more. Make sure it's all in all the little corners. So there we go with that. Sometimes that Baker's Joy makes me cough, I don't know. Anyway, this is what the batter is going to look like. It's very thin. And I'm going to pour that in. And I think I mentioned I put a teaspoon of lemon zest in here too. If I didn't, well, I did. So, there we go. Now I'm going to bake that in a 350-degree oven for 30 minutes or until a pick inserted comes out clean. So there we have it, and I have it on my rack because this tends to get a little bit, you know, it bends a lot, so I just put it on the rack. And I cook this in my toaster oven. So, and like I said, 350 degrees for 30 minutes, and we'll see how it is. 350 for 30 minutes, and there we have it. So I'll be back when it's done, and I'll show you what the cake looks like. Okay, so I decided to make some banana bread too. I had two very, very ripe bananas that I liquefied pretty much. I mashed it up with my little avocado masher. This thing is great. I use it for a lot of things, mashing up beans, bananas, avocados, whatever, and I use it all the time. So anyway, same basic recipe as the almond cake and the chocolate cake. So in here I have 1 cup of flour, all-purpose, 3/4 cups almond flour, 1 teaspoon baking soda, half a cup of sugar, not a cup, because the bananas are really sweet, teaspoon of lemon zest, just because I like lemon zest in my bakery. If you don't like that, leave it out. And half a teaspoon of salt, and I use the pink Himalayan salt. So those are my dry ingredients. My wet ingredients, 2 very ripe bananas. They didn't quite make a cup of liquid, so I added enough water to make it 1 cup. So depending on if you have large or small bananas, these were kind of medium. I just added enough water to make 1 cup. 6 tablespoons of neutral tasting oil, any oil of your choice, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. You have to put the lemon juice in because that's what works with the baking soda to make it rise. So I'm going to give this a mix like I did with the almond cake, just to incorporate everything. Now this batter will be thicker than the almond cake because it has banana in it, but that's okay. I made this as a cake one time, and this time I'm going to make it into a loaf and see how that turns out. The baking time might be a little different. Oh, and I forgot to say, in the dry ingredients I also added 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, which is also optional. If you don't like cinnamon, leave it out. So this is pretty well incorporated now, and I'm going to add that to my dry mixture. Now, this is the easiest recipe ever, and I'm having a lot of fun experimenting with it. Oh, there's my cake, and I'll be back and show it to you. So this is what the almond cake looks like. And we'll see how it turns out. Looks like it's a little bit, I tested it and it came out clean. Smells good, but we'll see once I get it, let it cool and get it out of the pan. So I'm going to continue with my banana bread. I'm going to set this over here just to cool. And I don't know if that recipe will need some tweaking or not. I love these oven gloves. I have 2 of them. They work great. And you don't really have to worry about the pot holder slipping. Okay, back to my banana bread, cake, whatever. Like I said, this did make a great cake recipe. So I'm going to add the wet ingredients now to the dry ingredients. And I actually enjoy baking with this recipe, and I've never been much of a baker because I don't like the mess. But this doesn't make much mess, so it's pretty good. Basically all you have is a bowl and a few mixing utensils, and you're done. So you can add nuts to this. I'm making this for my grandkids, and they don't really like nuts in it. You can add chocolate chips to it, you know, whatever you like in your banana bread. So, like I said, this batter is much thicker than the almond cake. So we'll see how the almond cake turns out. Like I said, the chocolate was great. The banana cake was great. I don't know about the almond cake. I may need to tweak that a little bit because that batter was pretty thin, but I'll let you know how it turns out. So I'm going to just mix this up. And like I said, I've never tried this in a loaf pan, so I'm going to try that and see how it turns out. You can see this batter is much, much thicker because of the banana. And I want to try this too with, I want to try making an apple cake with it and using some applesauce. I think that might be good. Applesauce and chopped up apples and some walnuts. I think that would be really tasty. So I'm going to try that too, and it'd be great for fall. So make sure you get everything off the bottom. Okay, that looks good. That's why I like this glass bowl. You can see what you're doing. Now here I have a small baking pan that I've used the Baker's Joy on. You could put raisins in here too, cranberries, whatever you like, and make it a fall type bread. You could probably make this with pumpkin. I think that would be delicious. So I'm going to try that too. So I'm going to have a couple baking videos coming up here, and you can experiment along with me and see how that turns out. So you know me and my baking experiments and my cooking experiments. It's just fun. And boy, sometimes I get some flops, but a lot of times it turns out really tasty. So I'm going to bake this at 350. I'm going to start off with 30 minutes, but I'm thinking it's going to need a little longer because the cake took 30. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be more like 45. So there we have it. And the batter's good. You don't have to worry about salmonella because there's no eggs in it. So there it is. And into the oven it will go. And I will be back later and let you see how everything turned out. Okay, I'm back. Here is the almond cake. Now normally when I make this cake, I leave it in the pan, frost the top, and eat it that way. But I did a little experiment with this one, and I turned it out. I did leave it in the pan for, about 20 minutes. So what happened was it stuck to the bottom of the pan in some places. So anyway, the flavor of it is very good. It's very moist, but it's not working for a layer cake. It works better as a pan sheet cake. So, lesson learned, but it's very tasty. So anyway, I'm going to play around with this recipe a little bit more and see what I can come up with. My banana bread is looking good, and I'll show you that when I come back in a few minutes when it's done. Alright, here is the banana bread, fresh out of the oven. It turned out nice. I ended up baking it for, it was 35 minutes. And then I inserted a pick, it came out clean. So you have to kind of experiment with it a little bit depending on the size of your pan and everything. But yeah, this turned out nice. It's got a nice crispy crust. It's moist inside. So that was the banana bread. And I'm going to cut a little piece of this almond cake. This would be really good with a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top of it. But like I said, it's not a good cake to make a layer cake out of. But so leave it in the pan if you make this cake and just cut the pieces out of the pan. You can frost it if you want, but I'll be back in a minute. Alright, here's what it looks like. It has a larger crumb. It would be great as an apple cake. If you put apples in here, it'd be really good. But the taste is good. It's very almondy. So I'll give it a taste test here. Very almondy. If you like the taste of almonds, I think you'd like this cake. But I need to experiment around with it a little bit more and see if I can get it so that it won't crumble so much. It's very crumbly. But like I said, it'd be great with a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top. So anyway, would I make this again? I probably wouldn't make this particular recipe. This one I definitely would make again. I've made it before. This one, if you like almonds and you like the taste of almonds and you like a very moist cake, I think you'd like it. But I don't know if I would make it again or not. So, I mean, it is tasty, but the texture of it's a little bit too crumbly. Like I said, it would make a great apple cake. If you had some apples in there with the almonds, it would really be good. So anyway, I'll fool around with it a little bit more. See what I can come up with. Here I am. And there you are. But I love fooling around in the kitchen making up recipes, so as long as it's totally edible, I'll eat it. I'll probably freeze some of this because I can't eat a whole cake. I'm not a big sweet eater. But I'm trying to find a good almond cake recipe that's vegan that I can make for my daughter's birthday. So it's a work in progress. But anyway, that's all I have for you today. And it's a beautiful sunny day out. I'm going to go do something fun. You go do something fun too. Enjoy your day. Put your feet up, have a cup of coffee. Love yourself. Love all your peoples. And I wish you all abundant blessings. And I love you guys. And I'll see you next time. Hello again. I'm back. I'm going to post this video right after I post the other video because I'm going to make almond cake number 2 and I want to see how this one turns out. And for this one I left out the almond flour because in the chocolate cake you don't use the almond flour. It's great with the banana bread, but like I said, the other cake, almond cake that I made was good for a pancake. Not a pancake, but a sheet cake. But not good for a layer cake, and that wasn't what I was looking for. So this recipe is very similar to the chocolate cake one, except I'm going to make it into an almond cake. So what I did here, this is just all-purpose flour. I left the almond flour out. And this is 1 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour. 1 teaspoon of baking soda, not powder, 1/2 teaspoon of, I use Himalayan sea salt, the pink, but whatever salt you have, 3/4 of a cup of sugar, and I did put a little more of the lemon zest in here, but you can leave that out, and that was a teaspoon. And that is what is in here for my dry ingredients. So I'm going to post the recipe for this cake below and we'll see how this one comes out. Doggy drama. Okay, so those were my dry ingredients and I hope I mentioned everything, but I will put the recipe below. So those are the dry ingredients, and here I have, this time I used almond milk, unflavored almond milk, but I imagine you could use vanilla if you want, but I just used the regular unsweetened. 6 tablespoons of neutral flavored oil, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and 1 teaspoon of almond extract. You can use less almond extract if you don't like it quite as almondy. So anyway, I'm going to mix this up. That's all there is to it. So we'll see how it turns out with just the regular flour instead of the almond flour. And I know I probably shouldn't post these recipes till I get them perfected, but that's kind of half the fun of doing it, is sharing my flops with you guys. And then I could tell you what doesn't work. So, but anyway, yeah, this batter is much thicker than it was with the almond flour. Actually, it had the same amount of flours in it. It had 3/4 cup of almond flour and 1/4 cup of regular flour. But I think the regular flour absorbs the moisture a little bit more. So I'm going to beat that up a little bit, and I'm going to use my whisk now that that's incorporated. And I'll see how this turns out. So I'll be back once I get this mixed up. Okay, there we have it, all mixed up, and as you can see, the batter's thin, but not as thin as the almond was. The almond flour one was. So here I have my handy dandy silicone pan again, and I'm going to put this in there, and hopefully this one will turn out a little less crumbly. That would be good. You can use lemon zest and lemon extract in here. You can use, you know, whatever extract flavor you like, strawberry. You can actually put banana extract in here. There's so many different choices. But, you know, I want to master this almond cake. So I'll just keep fooling around with it till I get it right. But I'm going to put this in the oven now, and you know I use my toaster oven. First of all, that saves energy and it goes quick, and I don't have to heat up my whole house whenever I bake something. So I'm going to pop this in the oven, 350 for 30 minutes, and we'll see how this one turns out. Okay, I'm back. All right, this is much better. So this was the second recipe. I don't know what it looks like inside yet. I'm going to bake another one of these because I want to make this a 2-layer cake. So smells very almondy, and this one turned out fine. So it's still hot. I'm going to let that cool, and we'll see what we can come up with. That'd be kind of a fun cake to make. Actually, could make like 3 layers. But anyway, there we have it, almond cake, and I'll post that recipe below too. And I think tomorrow I'm going to try and make a slow cooker lasagna. I have tomatoes, I have an eggplant, a zucchini that I need to use up, and some various vegan cheeses. Now for me, I know you mention vegan and some people go running off into the night screaming, but a lot of these recipes that I post, you can also use, you know, various ingredients in them, so you don't have to make them vegan if you don't want. But anyway, just thought I would share this recipe with you. This one seems to be a little better. I think I would do like a crumb frosting on here and then freeze it for a little bit, and then do the regular frosting just so it doesn't crumble, because it does seem to be a very moist cake. The chocolate was delicious. Did I mention the chocolate was delicious? It really was. So this works better for the almond cake. And we'll leave the banana cake with the almond flour and take it out of this one. All right, that's all I have for now. Ellen's baking day. All right, my friends, I love you guys. I wish you abundant blessings, and I'll see you next time.